Hi, team, and welcome back. So, what is it that makes us human? What about us makes us so different, so special in the animal kingdom? Well, there's been a lot of ideas about it. There are a few things I'd like to point out. Well, first and foremost, our jaws and teeth are much smaller than most other primates, but that's something that we're going to explore later on in Unit 3 of this course. But one of the things I want to draw your attention to in particular are our canine teeth. These are these teeth here. Here's a human jaw compared to a non-human ape jaw. In this case, it's a gorilla. The first thing you'll notice in human teeth, our tooth row is pretty straight. You don't see a lot of teeth breaking that line between the tooth rows, top and bottom. Here's our canine teeth. They may overlap just a little bit. Same with our incisor teeth in front, but not very much. Whereas if you look at the other primates, particularly the apes, you will look at, here's the tooth row, but then at the canine teeth, it strongly breaks that line. You see this huge whoop, whoop over here, and then going to their incisor teeth. What's going on with that? Well, this is kind of a recurring theme in my course. I'm going to ruin some things that you may have learned from elementary school. Things that we all thought we knew. For example, we have different types of teeth. And we're taught as little kids that those different types of teeth are for different things. And ideally, they are. For example, your incisor teeth, those are your four teeth right up in front, are really sharp and really good for cutting up carrots. Your molars and premolars are good for grinding things like grains. And they always tell you that your canine teeth are good for what? You're probably thinking ripping and tearing meat, right? And yet, if you look at all the other primates, they actually have enormous canine teeth. But do gorillas eat much meat? Do bonobos, orangutans, do they eat much meat? No. In fact, they're all strictly vegetarian. The only meat they ever eat, those particular, in fact, most other primates, the only meat they eat are insects, or technically nut meat, but they don't eat nuts very often. Nuts are also usually have to be either boiled or heated in some way or broken apart. And there's all kinds of other things involved there. So what do they use those giant canine teeth for? Well, truth is, they're using it as a defense mechanism. When humans smile, we're the only ones that smile as a placation gesture, as a nice face. When your dog smiles at you, when a dog in the wild that you don't know bares its teeth, what's it doing? Is it being friendly? Nope. It's showing you its weapons. Our smile, as unique as it is, humans are the only animal that doesn't have to be taught to smile. You can teach your dog to smile. They'll do anything for a treat. And if they learn that, hey, look at what this idiot human likes me to smile, I'm going to smile. But they don't do it naturally. Humans do. How old were you when you were taught how to smile? New moms and dads in here. How old is the appropriate age to teach your baby to smile? None. We don't teach a baby to smile. Smiles are universal. They're all over the world. They're the same thing. A person in Japan smiles the same way as a person in India, person in Indiana. Doesn't matter. Right? A smile is ubiquitous. What is a smile, and why does our species smile? The only reason we smile is a placation gesture. It's a nice gesture. We show our teeth to show us. It's basically the same thing as when police approach you and you put your hands up. You're showing in the natural world, I don't have any weapons. You see? These stupid little teeth aren't going to put anybody in danger. In most other primates, huge canine teeth are a defense mechanism, a warning, a tool to fight with. Ours are not. So our tiny jaws and teeth are fairly unique, but they're not something that's unique enough to make us a unique animal. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on here. And our tiny jaws and teeth are actually something else entirely, which we'll see is involved with high tool use and some other things that we do later on. Really the advent of fire. What about speech? Surely we're the only animal that's capable of symbolic speech. Is that true? Nope. Actually, it's not. Truth is, and this image is showing you really specifically the hyoid bone, which is this bone right in here, which is not connected uniquely to any other bone in the body. This is hanging kind of in the middle of your throat, and it's connected and a connection point for a lot of muscles, including the tongue. So for that reason, a lot of people have pointed to the hyoid bone and said things like, oh, Neanderthals didn't speak because they didn't have a hyoid bone. Truth is, they do have a hyoid bone, and they absolutely did speak. But that's something that we'll talk about in Unit 3 again. Truth is, our speech is fairly unique in that it is very intensive. It's very highly symbolic. It's very advanced. But are we the only animal that speaks? Absolutely not. Maybe a surprise to some of you, maybe not a surprise to others, but whales have language. Dolphins have language. To the point, whales from different parts of the world cannot, even the same species of whale, from different parts of the world cannot understand each other. Dolphins call each other by name. These are things that we have just recently discovered in the past, I don't know, decade or so. So it's still fairly new to us. But truth is, a lot of animals have language, have a speech pattern that is symbolic, changes with times, changes with new stuff that they learn, changes with a new shift in environment. All these things are really important to understand. So are we the only animal that speaks? No, we are absolutely not. What about hunting? Surely man the hunter. That's an old sexist kind of selfish term that came from really the mid-19th century, where we think of humans and hunting as a prestigious thing, which indeed it could be associated with that. But truth is, humans, in the grand scheme of things, are horrible hunters. In fact, we use tools. In fact, we use other animals to help us hunt. Are humans the best hunters that have ever survived, ever existed? Absolutely not. Are humans even halfway decent at hunting in the animal kingdom? Not even close. There are so many animals that are so much better equipped for hunting. Yes, we can shoot things with guns. That's cheating. Try taking on a lion with your bare hands. Try taking on a rabbit or a rat with your bare hands. Try taking on your house cat with your bare hands if it's mad at you. We cower from much smaller animals all the time. We're terrified of mice. Think about that. Think about how much you outweigh a mouse. We are absolutely horrible at almost everything without our tools. Humans cannot jump high. We cannot run fast. We can't even outrun a house cat. We cannot climb very well. We cannot swim very well. We certainly cannot jump very well. All of these things we suck at as humans. We only really have one thing that we're really good at, and that is making and using tools to allow us to do a lot of things. We can't really break anything, so we make a hammer. We can't cut anything, so we make cutting tools, like a saw or a knife. We can't chew anything, so we make it softer by cooking it. We can't live in the wild without clothing. We can't even drink the water without sterilizing it in such a way first. That's how beer was invented, by the way. We're horrible at surviving. Think about it this way. How many times do you hear how excited we are that some human has survived in the wilderness for 2 or 3 days or a week or 2 weeks? Oh my God, she survived. Against all odds. Hiker lost in the wilderness for nearly a week. How often do you celebrate that a squirrel has survived a week in the wild? We cannot survive very well. In fact, an infant in the wild is just expected to die. Our babies can't do anything. And that's for the first 2 or 3 years in life before they're even capable of self-sustaining, let alone survival. And as adults, we're impressed if we survive for a week in the wild. Every animal on the planet has survived its entire life in the wild. And what's more, we keep destroying their ability to do that by creating roads and things like that. We're one of the most destructive animals on the planet. We do use tools. Are we the only animal in history to use tools? Not even close. In fact, almost every other animal on the planet will use a tool of some sort. Some quite advanced tools. We are some of the only ones that use stones that we have changed to make them into tools. But we're not the only ones. Most primates will use tools. This chimp is a young male chimp who is taught by his mom how to hunt for termites. That's what he's doing. He's basically fishing for termites in this termite mound. Chimpanzees are doing this with forethought. This tool that he's using to hunt termites is a stick that termites like to eat. He has to condition the stick for up to 3 days. He's got to modify the stick. He's got to find the stick. It's got to be from the particular tree, etc., etc. They also use stone tools. A lot of chimps, macaques, aye-ayes, all sorts of different animals have been caught, so to speak, on camera using stone tools. Usually, the way they're using them is similar to the way that we start using them by using a hammer and anvil stone. Basically, a big flat rock. You put a nut on the rock, and then you smash the outer shell of the nut, or whatever you're trying to get at, with another rock. It's a very basic way. But it doesn't take very long for those rocks to hit together, and then you start getting a cutting implement, and then they start using it for that. We have seen some, for example, some gorillas that were using stones as cutting implements as well. We do have especially adapted hands that really help us create sophisticated stone tools. They're hard to do, even today. In fact, most of you probably have not tried to flint knap. That is, where you hit 2 rocks together and get one to break in such a way that you can use it. Stone tools are exceedingly difficult to make, and they are really sharp and very effective once you can. But again, without tools, we're not much. This brings me back to those wonderful footprints. The fact that we walk on 2 feet is extremely important. I told you before, we're only alive because Sahelanthropus chadensis, way back about 7 million years ago, started walking efficiently on 2 feet. But how do we know? Even if they have all of the bone structure to walk on 2 feet. How do we know that they were actually doing it? Enter these. These are known as the Laetoli footprints. The Laetoli footprints show us in stone, these are fossilized, what used to be volcanic ash has fossilized, and they were found just below the surface in Africa. And here we have 2 animals walking side by side. Those 2 animals, the footprints date back to the same time as Australopithecus afarensis, which is Lucy's species. And you can probably make out there are 2 sets of humanoid footprints. Here's one set. And here, right beside it, another set of much smaller prints. These prints show us that these 2 individuals were walking side by side, which is pretty exciting, but there's more to it than that. It gets even more exciting than that. If you see, these much larger prints are sharing the same gait as the much smaller prints. If you guys have ever tried to walk boyfriend and girlfriend or friend and friend or whatever, and one person is taller or larger and the other person is shorter, if you're walking hand in hand or arm in arm, what do you tend to do? You tend to start to match each other's gait because it's very awkward to walk. If one person's taking big strides and the other one's taking short strides, it gets all thrown off and everybody's bouncing around. So the person with the shorter stride tends to lengthen their stride. The person with the longer stride tends to shorten their gait to match. And what's exciting here is if you look at these large footprints, they're much too large to be taking these tiny little steps. What they're doing is matching their gait to this individual. And how would we account for the difference in foot size? Well, if you look at us, anatomically modern humans, males tend to have bigger feet than females. Not always, but they tend to. So we may have a male and female. Oh, it's boyfriend and girlfriend walking arm in arm. It may be. It may be an adult and a child, but they may be closely holding one another, just like this. And by the way, that's not a winter wonderland that they're walking through. It's volcanic ash. A volcano has erupted. They're just walking along. In fact, in the previous image, you can see there's a lot of other footprints running across. So what we have is 2 pre-human hominins, Australopithecus afarensis, doing a very human thing, caring for each other, walking together, walking on 2 feet efficiently. This is a big, important thing. This is literally the biggest thing that made us around today. Because of this, they were able to exploit new resources that the other apes were not competing for. And that literally kept our species alive. Epistemology. Now I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about something that we think we know. And that is the world. Every time you approach anything, you think you know a lot about what you know. So epistemology. Epista means what you think, and ology means the study of. So it's the study of what you think. How do we know what we think we know? I'm going to give you a quick quiz. Don't cheat. You ready? Sitting here staring at your computer screen, what color is the sky? You probably bounced right back with it's blue. Probably nobody here said it's purple or orange. Why not? Well, it's based on 2 fundamental things: direct and indirect observation. Direct observation is the easiest. Direct observation fundamentally means you either feel, touch, smell, hear, see, somehow experience something. Indirect observation, a little less obvious. And it can come from a lot of different places. Direct observation. Can you feel gravity? Yes, you can. Then there's another extension of this, and that is that the world seems to follow rules or laws, and those rules don't change. They're immutable, and that they can be observed. Let me give you a perfect example. Every day of your entire life, and everybody whom you know, whom you've talked to about this, their entire life, they have known gravity, right? Have you ever woken up in the morning clinging to your bed thinking, oh my God, gravity might be turned off today. I don't want to float off into space. Of course not. Why not? Because you know that gravity was on yesterday. It's going to be on today. When you woke up this morning, you don't freak out because you just know you can throw your legs over the side of the bed and they're going to go down instead of up. You're not going to float off into space because gravity is still happening. This is direct observation. How do you know if it's a warm day outside? Well, you can do it two ways. You can do direct or indirect observation. Direct observation would be to do the obvious. Go outside and feel it. Does it feel warm today? Yep, good to go. It's going to be a warm day. What about indirect observation? You can find out whether it's going to be a warm day by asking or inquiring somebody or something that you trust to know whether it's going to be a warm day or not. For example, the TV news. If they say it's going to be 103 degrees out, well, they're probably along the right lines. They may be a little bit wrong here or there, but for the most part, you're pretty trusting of them. Or the weather app on your phone. Same story, same deal. These are indirect observations. How do you know the moon isn't made out of cheese? Indirectly, we know this because the astronauts who went there, and they went there, don't get me started, know that it's covered with a fine dust, powder. It's made of stone, particularly gypsum, and a lot of other stones. Okay. But indirect observation goes a lot deeper than that. How do you know, for example, that if your little brother walks out onto the asphalt on a hot summer day, let's say it's 100 degrees out in the valley, and the asphalt's black, and your little brother heads out with bare feet, what's gonna happen when his little tootsies touch the hot asphalt? They're gonna get burned, right? You know this not because you ran outside and tested the temperature of the asphalt. You know this because your experience, your life experience, has told you that if you go outside on a hot summer day, that asphalt's going to even be hotter because it's black. It's absorbing all that heat. This is indirect observation. You know your little brother's feet are going to get burned because you know the conditions are right for that asphalt to be really hot. This goes a lot deeper, and we'll talk more about epistemology later on. But just know this is how we know what's around the world, what's happening. But what happens when our assumptions get challenged? That's what you really have to think about. And that's where the scientific method comes into play. The scientific method is fundamentally using that epistemology to identify a problem based on earlier observations. So you say, okay, I would like this wheel to roll more efficiently. I know that if I roll this wheel, it will stop eventually, and I want it to roll further without stopping so that it'll be more efficient. It'll be easier for this motor to roll that wheel or for me to pedal this bicycle. So you then use all of the things that you think you know. Well, it's rolling as best it can, but it would roll better if the tire was harder, if the bearings around the axle were lubricated better. Because lubrication makes things slide easier with less friction. A harder tire offers less rolling resistance against the ground. So I think if I put a harder tire and lubricate the axle, this wheel will roll further, more efficiently. That's my hypothesis. That's stage 2. Now what do? Well, I lubricate one, pump another tire up harder, and compare it to the earlier one. And lo and behold, it rolls further. Am I done yet? No! I've now got to test it again and again and again. Notice it says observations. Why? Because that wheel may roll better than the other wheel. So I've got to test it again with 2 new wheels, 2 different wheels. See if I get the same results over and over and over again. And if that doesn't happen, then something's wrong with my hypothesis, and I go back and change that. This is a little different from the way that we do it normally. If you ask somebody, why is the sky blue? Chances are they're going to come up with some reason. It may be right, it may be wrong. Probably going to be wrong. A lot of people have a lot of hypotheses as to why the sky is blue, and the vast majority of them are wrong. You may go ask your Uncle Earl, okay, Uncle Earl, why is the sky blue? Oh, that's easy to know. The sky is blue because it's reflecting the water on the planet. Really? How can you test that? Well, first of all, the sky doesn't reflect much of anything. It's clear. You can see that at night. But the sky's blue during the day. Why? Is it reflecting the water? No. The way you can test that, go to Arizona. Go to the middle of the desert and look up. The sky's still blue. In fact, it's more blue over Arizona. Real reason is because there's a lot less humidity, therefore there's less refraction as you're looking up. The sky's actually blue because of that, refraction. When the light coming from the sun hits our atmosphere, it refracts, it bends. And if you've ever shown a light through a prism, you know that bending of light can make different colors come out of the white light. It's actually made up of all those colors. You bend it, shorter bends create things that are in blue spectrum, blue-violet, and the easier bends split out things like the reds. So, when the light is getting to the Earth, when we look up, we see the light being strongly refracted through our atmosphere, and that shows us blue, the blue spectrum. There you go. Next, I have a video for you guys to watch that is not me. It's a very short video that kind of explains another aspect of science, that last little twist. Instead of defending our hypotheses against everything else, oh yeah, the sky's blue. If you go back to Uncle Earl and say, no, it turns out it's not because of reflection from the sea, Uncle Earl's going to say, well, yeah, it is. And he'll throw up every idea he can come up with to try to defend it. Has he actually tested it? No, obviously not. Our knee-jerk reaction in real life is to try to defend what we think we know. In reality, what we know should be more like the scientific method. It is a self-correcting thing. And truth is, every time you learn something new, you're doing that. You're self-correcting. You're changing your own universal perspective on the world, which is pretty cool. The truth is this. We're not really well equipped for surviving in nature, but we are fairly good at questioning things. And that's what the next video I want you to see explains very clearly.